Well, what a privilege it is to have Dr. Ray Strand join us this morning. He is our chief medical director for PartnerCo. He's been part of this company and the previous company for, gosh, I don't know, a decade or so. And if you've never heard Dr. Strand talk, he'll tell you that he was a non-believer in these products and supplements and all that stuff, but things changed in a personal thing for him and his wife. And he kind of flipped the switch and he saw the light. And now he's going to share with us today. Just why the drops, and also some other products, right, Dr. Strand, some other products that might be beneficial for those on this this health journey.
Well, that's right. And I'm going to be talking a little different angle that people aren't paying a lot of attention to, and giving them insight of this wonderful Slenderiiz program that everybody has been involved with. And if I can share my screen, is that okay there, John?
I believe Sarah will get you set up if you're not.
Yeah, if we're not, I want to be able to share my screen. And okay.
She'll make a co-host.
Oh no, I'm
There you
gonna.
go.
I've got her, and then I'm gonna. Whoops. Here we go from the beginning. But anyway, I'm going to focus today on the maintenance phase of the Slenderiiz program. Now, in our little booklet, we do have 3 phases. When I've written, I had 2 phases, you know, the weight loss or the burn phase and the maintenance phase. But there's a reset phase that we put in the booklet. But I wanted people to really understand this, because this is key. This is key for us to understand the maintenance phase. And so let's get into it here. You know, we have to understand that our PartnerCo Slenderiiz program is not a diet, but our healthy lifestyles. It just happened to have a side effect of fat loss. You know, weight loss is great. However, keeping it off is priceless. And I'll tell you, and you'll understand why that is true. So the maintenance phase, when does this come in? And I tell my patients, and I've done this, actually, it's a little longer than a decade. I started in 1996 doing this program. So we're out here a ways. And I developed this basic program back then in my medical practice, put it online. I've done 3 clinical trials involving this program under the guidelines of the FDA, called IRB, Institutional Review Board. And so we followed the guidelines of the FDA, and we know that this program is clinically effective. Now, obviously, I did not have the drops at that point. They came in 2011, but I was intimately involved in bringing this into PartnerCo and developing the Slenderiiz booklet that you all are aware of and have in each box of Slenderiiz. But once you have reached your health and weight goals, this is what I tell my patients, you should move on to the maintenance phase of the Slenderiiz program. So we all have a goal. You know, when we come into the Slenderiiz program, I would say 95% of individuals are mainly focused on weight. However, as a physician, there are tremendous health benefits that come out, and that's what I focus on. But what you have to understand is that there is, once you reach that goal, and if you're close or you're coming, I want people to get fired up that, you know, the burn phase doesn't last forever, okay? You do lose the weight. The weight comes off, the central weight gain, because I'm going to show you why. But this is what I'm going to visit with you about today, so you have a better understanding. If you haven't reached that, where you're going. If you've reached that, what you need to do to maintain. That's what maintenance means. I want to maintain all the benefits that I have accomplished. Now, why is that important? Well, you've got to start to understand some weight control facts. here's what people don't realize. Over 70% of adults today in the US are either overweight or obese. Now that's a huge number. Over 30% of our children are now either overweight or obese, and that's going up. But here's the thing. 2/3 of the people who lose weight on a diet, okay, this is what the medical literature tells us. And if you really review it, in 1 year, will gain that weight back and more. Now, if you go out 2 years in the medical literature, 98% of diets fail. They gain the weight back within 2 years. And my patients come in and say, well, gee, Dr. Strand, I went on such and such a diet. I kept it off for 2 years. I said, no, I'm going to correct you. It just took you 2 years to gain it back. You didn't, this is the problem. And so that's why diets have trouble. But you want to say, well, why don't diets work? What's the reason? The reason diets don't work is they're a short-term solution for a long-term problem. My patients that come in and tell me, boy, Dr. Strand, I'm going to go on such and such a diet. Well, the connotation there is if I'm going to go on a diet somewhere in the future, I'm going to come off that diet and usually return to those poor lifestyles that got me in trouble to begin with. So this is what you have to understand, that diets do not tackle the core issue that we're dealing with, which it is metabolic dysfunction, which leads to that hormonal imbalance you guys are all talking about. So let's just talk about and understand the metabolic dysfunction. It's a modern epidemic. This is the newest statistics. Over 50% of the adults, both in the US and Canada, are now either pre-diabetic or diabetic. This is metabolic dysfunction. Half the people, the adults, there's also, they think about 1/3 of the children are there. Now, why is this happening? Well, it's really a continuous problem of different things of our lifestyle, but it's primarily the all-American diet and inactivity. But it's poor lifestyles that makes us less and less sensitive to our own insulin. And this leads to insulin resistance, and I'll share that. But no one tackles this problem. But this is the modern epidemic, the diabetes and obesity epidemics. That's what we're facing. Now, anybody that's in the business of promoting health with a Slenderiiz program, you are not going to run out of prospects. Trust me. This is an amazing issue. It's the issue of our time. It's the healthcare issue. Just think about diabetes. What does it lead to? It's the leading cause of amputation, of renal failure, of blindness, of peripheral neuropathy. These people get secondary problems, and it's all preventable in type 2. Now, there's 10% that have type 1 diabetes, which it still helps what we're talking about, but this is something that's a personal choice. You have a choice. So let's look at the problems of metabolic dysfunction and prediabetes. Now, this is the new term. If you haven't heard metabolic dysfunction, this is why I'm switching. This is what people are talking about out there, and other physicians are starting to understand this. But when you become less sensitive to your own insulin, the body responds to that problem by making more insulin. That's your hormonal imbalance, okay? That starts. Then that insulin also, there's another hormone called glucagon, which is your fat-releasing hormone. And as soon as you tip into this abnormal metabolic state, there's a lot of things that occur, not only hormonally, but you get central weight gain. Your waist size starts expanding. You start to develop high blood pressure. That blood pressure starts creeping up. You develop high cholesterol and another fat in the blood called triglycerides. That goes up. This process, this underlying metabolic dysfunction has been shown to be the root cause of sleep apnea. It gets up and you get obstructive sleep apnea. That's 90% of people that are on CPAP. Polycystic ovarian disease, the major cause of infertility, the underlying cause is metabolic dysfunction. And we know it leads to diabetes and leads potentially to heart disease and stroke. And now they're talking about type 3 diabetes, not type 2, type 3, which is Alzheimer's dementia. Now, just look at this list. Think about Big Pharma. They love this. Look at the drugs they get to prescribe for this. 60% of all drugs prescribed in the United States and Canada, throughout the world, is due to this metabolic dysfunction. Look at the high blood pressure medications. Look at statin drugs. Look at drugs for diabetes, you know, and all of the things that we see, heart disease, stroke, and Alzheimer's. So as a physician who once loved their drugs and was drug oriented, I've realized, jeepers, if I could just help people get out of this metabolic dysfunction and do it naturally, if they're on drugs, their doctor will slowly take them off, at least most of their drugs. And I started to decide that I was going to use medications as a last resort, not a first choice. So what we're going to do is show you a graph, and this will make sense to you. Let me just kind of get down here to get my pointer. And I want to show you. This graph was given to me by an actual pharmaceutical rep that sells a diabetes drug called Avandia. But Avandia improves insulin sensitivity, so they wanted to show me this graph, but it really demonstrates. This graph that you see here is about 25 years of time. Now, you could go back on this another 10, 15 years, because these poor lifestyles, you don't develop metabolic dysfunction overnight. It takes years of just these poor lifestyles. So many of the people in their teens and their 20s used to not have trouble. Now, because of our kids not being active in that, we're seeing about 70%, 80% of our children who are becoming diabetic actually have type 2 diabetes. And remember, that used to be called adult onset diabetes. Now, that's in our children. When I started medical school and I was training in pediatrics, they said, if you get a child that has diabetes, 98% have type 1, only 2%. That is switched now. It's 70, 80% have type 2 as young as 6 years of age. So we're seeing this change fast, but this orange line represents insulin resistance, so you're not as sensitive. So once you tip over into this abnormal metabolic state called metabolic dysfunction, and you become more and more resistant to insulin, what happens? The body compensates. Look at the green line, is insulin production. Look over here. So insulin production goes up. That's the hormone imbalance that you guys are talking about all the time. And when this goes up, the glucagon becomes less effective and it's dysfunctional. So you're not able to release fat normally. Now, we're just going to talk there because I've got a whole talk on that. I'm not going to go back. But as long as these two lines parallel, look at where blood sugars are. They're normal. And people stay in this state, but their blood pressure is going up, their cholesterol is going up, their blood sugars are going up. They got more inflammation in their arteries. Their arteries begin aging a third faster than they should. But we as physicians, many of them, just look at this blood sugar and they say, oh, there's no problem. Your blood sugar is fine. Well, you get out 12, 15 years and whoops, the old body can't keep making, the pancreas can't keep making that much insulin. So insulin production begins to fall. And then whoops, there goes your blood sugar. And we diagnose blood sugar or diabetes out here. When their blood sugar goes up, the trouble is the day I diagnose someone with diabetes in my medical practice, they have actually been found to have 60% of them have major cardiovascular disease. Okay, it's too late. We're behind the 8 ball. So 80% of our diabetics are dying prematurely today from what we call a cardiovascular event, a heart attack, a stroke, kidney failure. Ruptured aneurysm. 80%. That was true in 1960. Is true in 1970. It is true today. The reason is we're starting too late. That's why the American College and the American Association of Diabetes, our diabetes specialists, got together and said, oh, we should be back here treating this pre-diabetes, or when you tip over into this metabolic dysfunction, just as aggressively as we do diabetes. And they looked at the worldwide medical literature and they said, hey, how do we treat this? What do we tell physicians to do? You know, it's not a drug. No drug can handle this. It's intensive lifestyle changes. And that's what the Slenderiiz program is. So that's where we are. Now, I just want to go over this quickly because I'm going to be talking 80% of the carbohydrates the normal average American adult and child consume are what we call high glycemic. They spike your blood sugar because it's processed grains, processed foods, the almighty white potato. We're consuming sugar like it's going out of style. So in the morning, you wake up, this black line is your fasting blood sugar. And what happens is you eat a high, go have instant oatmeal or a bagel, orange juice, and whoops, that blood sugar goes shooting up. Well, the body's got to control blood sugar in a very narrow range because we think on blood sugar. So this stimulates the release of insulin. The trouble is when it spikes as high, it overstimulates the release of insulin and drives that blood sugar back down below the fasting blood sugar. This is critical into the low blood sugar range we call hypoglycemia. Now, the body, this actually stimulates the release of our stress hormones. Glucagon is again one of the hormones, but adrenaline, cortisol, to drive that blood sugar back up to normal. The problem with that is even though it returns to normal, we now have these high stress hormones floating around in our bloodstream, which creates an uncontrollable hunger. You have to eat again, and you generally crave another high glycemic meal. So we understand that. I just want to point that out. That's the danger of all these processed grains and processed foods. And now the answer is being the whole foods. So here's PartnerCo's Slenderiiz program, which are healthy lifestyles, not a diet. Now, it's a 4-part comprehensive lifestyle program and not a diet, okay? Where it's not something you're going to go on and come off. You are going to consider taking Slenderiiz and Accelerate. And I'll kind of explain that here in a minute of what its role is. But then also a healthy diet, one that does not spike your blood sugar. So the food list that is in your booklet contains a major sampling of those foods that are whole foods, that are not processed grains, are not containing high glycemic foods like the white potato. So that's what you have. But that's part of a healthy lifestyle. So during the time that you're you're in the burn phase or reset phase, we're getting you out of that carbohydrate addiction, those carbohydrate cravings, which is a true addiction, and learning to eat a healthy diet. So we want to firmly establish that. We want you to also have modest exercise. And I'll explain what that is. And taking nutritional supplementation. Now, I believe all my patients should be on nutritional supplementations along with a healthy diet, a modest, consistent exercise program. I want them on nutritional supplements. This is part of just a healthy lifestyle. Now, if you happen to want to be losing weight or you're in this metabolic dysfunction, it's critical that you take nutritional supplements because a healthy diet, modest exercise, nutritional supplementation improves insulin sensitivity from different mechanisms. And I'll teach you Slenderiiz and Accelerate is a 4th way to improve insulin sensitivity. But I like the Optimals, MOA, or Tahitian noni juice. Now, many just use MOA. Many just use, Tahitian noni juice. Many use just the Optimals. But in my world, I like Optimals combined with your favorite juice, MOA, Tahitian noni juice. If you're on Limu, fine. But I like that they work together. There's a synergy. So that's the program. That's the fat burning program. And that's the Slenderiiz booklet. So just to review, what is glycemic index? Well, that's how fast a food spikes your blood sugar. And this is David Jenkins' work out of the University of Toronto. And what he did is he took glucose and watched it, and its glycemic index he gave as 100. Then he compared other foods, other carbohydrates. Look at the baked potato, 85. Cornflakes, 84. Whole wheat bread, 71. White bread, 70. Look at table sugar, 61. Now, these are all high, but look at that bread, flour, rice, cereal, potatoes actually spike your blood sugar worse than table sugar. So these are our enemies, and the USDA food pyramid, they want you to have 8 to 11 servings of all the grains and all this stuff. But look at your whole fruits and your whole foods, peach, sweet cherries, black beans. They're very low glycemic. So a low GI is less than 55, medium GI is 55 to 70, high GI is greater than 70. So that's the glycemic index. But in my book, I want you to look at another concept. It's called glycemic load. Okay. So how do I this is something that's very important, especially as you enter the maintenance phase. A glycemic load is defined as the glycemic index of a food multiplied by the grams of carbohydrates it contains, or calories, and divided by 100. So let's just give you a couple examples. Carrots. It has a glycemic index of 49, which, is good. It's in the low. It contains 5 grams of carbohydrates. Well, here's how you do the glycemic load. 49 times 5 divided by 100 equals 2.4. Now, I'll tell you the levels that you want to look at. Look at spaghetti, though. Gee, its lower glycemic index of 41. So if you just looked at the glycemic index, say, oh, gee, spaghetti's fine. I can do that. But it contains 52 grams of carbohydrates, and the calories. So 41 times 52 divided by 100 gives you a glycemic load of 21. That's huge. I mean, that's going to spike your blood sugar. So here's what I look at as a physician. I want a carbohydrate with a glycemic load less than 10 is considered to have a low glycemic load, and it cannot spike your blood sugar. I'm going to give you one example. The carrots, okay? Carrots are moderate, but let's use watermelon. Watermelon has a glycemic index of 72. It's actually high, but the grams of carbs are low. Its glycemic load is only 4. You can't eat watermelon fast enough or hard enough to spike your blood sugar, okay? Now, a carbohydrate with a glycemic load between 10 and 20 is considered to have a moderate glycemic load. And it can spike your blood sugar if you eat too much, but generally, it's something that you could do if you're careful, and I'll explain all of this here just later. But a carbohydrate with a glycemic load greater than 20 is considered to have a high glycemic load and will always spike your blood sugar. The glycemic load or glycemic index of a white potato is 25, but its glycemic load is 26. So potatoes are actually one of the worst foods that are out there. So when I talk to my people and they start out, it's the processed grains and the almighty white potato. If you have mashed potatoes, it has a glycemic index of 92, glycemic load of 28. So the point I'm trying to get to is it's a whole food, but it's an enemy. Okay? So here's just some representative foods, and I just want you to kind of quickly look through this list. But there's the potato, 26. Look at black beans, 25. Watermelon, 4. Beets, 5. The new potato, and I'm going to get into this, has a glycemic load of 13, so that's moderate. The sprouted bread's 9. Oatmeal is still high. Rolled oats, 13. Look at the white bagel, 25. Cornflakes, 24. But whole foods, peas, 7. Kidney, cashews. Look at yams. It's 13. Brown rice is 18. So there are some foods that you've been avoiding that are moderate. But anyway, that's just to give you an idea. So let's look at this again. When you are in the burn phase of the Slenderiiz program, you start here somewhere because most people are gain some weight. Okay, that's just part of it. Some may only have to lose 10, 15 pounds. Others might have to lose 40, 50. Others might be over 100. You don't know. And it's how far you're down this road. But when you start eating correctly, you start having a modest exercise program, and you're on supplementation, nutritional supplementation, and then you add Slenderiiz or Slenderix, you are going to start improving insulin sensitivity. We've seen this in the medical literature, and within a month or two, this starts to improve. And what happens? Well, you start to improve insulin resistance, and your blood insulin levels begin to fall. In fact, in our clinical trials, within 90 days, we found that the insulin levels dropped over 50%. And obviously, if you keep going, they just keep dropping. You are eventually going to tip back to a normal metabolic state. You're going to correct this metabolic dysfunction. That's when people are arriving at their goals, their health and weight goals. Their blood pressure's under control. If they're diabetic, they're under control. Their blood sugars are better. Their cholesterols are better. We see all those health transformation, people standing on the stage or talking, they're reversed. So you're down here. You're not out here anymore, okay? You've corrected this. You've tipped back into a normal metabolic state, but your hormonal imbalance has been corrected too. Your body's functioning normally. So you don't necessarily have to continue doing. So now I'm going to tell you what I recommend in the maintenance phase, and we have choices. I still want you to continue to eat a healthy diet of whole foods that do not spike your blood sugar. Remember, your enemy is all those processed foods, especially the processed grains and the almighty white potato. However, now you have the option to maybe stretch out and add back those healthy low glycemic whole grains, breads, and lower glycemic potatoes. Okay, now let me explain. You may occasionally add back some moderate glycemic foods, okay? And you still don't want to spike your blood sugar, so you have to be careful. But if you're careful, and I'll tell you a couple of ways to do that, you can add back some sprouted breads. Basmati rice has a moderate glycemic index and glycemic load. Long rice, Uncle Ben's long rice, and some very healthy brown rice have moderate glycemic index. The small red potatoes actually have a moderate glycemic load and index. Sweet potatoes, same. And yams are even better. So what I tell my patients is, still, if you're going to do this, be careful, but you're not like you were when you started the program. So it is an option. I mean, I'm not against staying with the food list or doing anything people want to do. That's okay. But here's the thing that I do. I still want my patients to consider using Pure Nourish. I have used Pure Nourish every day for over the last decade as my breakfast. Why? Because it's easy. It's great. I'm just hooked on it. Because it is low glycemic, it is gluten-free, soy-free, GMO-free. I can easily mix it with almond milk, coconut milk, along with some frozen fruit. I put in Giving Greens in every morning. I have Giving Greens in my Pure Nourish. It just, I'd like the idea of getting 2 pounds of veggies with my breakfast. I put in kale. I put in some good fat. I put in some beets. I mean, I do different things, but everybody can do it. But I have it every morning. Why is that great? Because it allows you to easily experience and start out your day with a healthy, low glycemic approach, and it does not spike your blood sugar. And I'm satisfied. I'll tell you, I consider this because this is part of your food budget. It is not supplementation, but I do this and I love Giving Greens. Now, if you're in the regular, if you're in the fat burning phase, I use this as a behavioral modification tool for my patients. But in the maintenance phase, I still use it I think it's great. Now, here's a concept I use in my book that I share. It is important that we eat a combination of foods. You want to have good carbohydrates combined with good proteins and good fats with each meal and snack. Why is that? See, when you eat a mixed meal, you're going to lower the glycemic index. You're not eating that carbohydrate by itself. See, fat slows down gastric or stomach emptying. That lowers your glycemic index of your carbohydrate. When you have proteins, it doesn't stimulate insulin. It's very good. It improves insulin sensitivity. So, we all eat mixed meals. You don't want to just go and have a bag of potato chips or French fries or something like that. You don't want to do it anyway. But the reason is the mixed meals work together. So, you can have a healthy, low glycemic meal, and it helps because it's mixed. You're putting it together. And, if you want a dessert, especially a whole fruit dessert, have it at the end of your meal. It will not spike your blood sugar. Now, I'm not, we got, uh, sugar stop. I mean, if you want a dessert and that, and you want to take that, but I really believe the mixed meals are a key, and I explain that in my books to understand that. But this is where we're going, especially with maintenance. We want to be doing this the rest of your life. So here again, when you do all this, you do not, the turquoise line here, you do not spike your blood sugar. Yes, your blood sugar goes up, but it doesn't overstimulate. And yes, you stimulate insulin. But what they find, if you have one low glycemic meal, your blood insulin levels drop. The second meal, it drops more. And yes, your blood sugar will return, but it returns to that fasting blood sugar. It does not get in the low glycemic range. You do not overstimulate the release of insulin. And so you have another meal, but make sure, or snack, that it does not spike your blood sugar. And you will get out of this carbohydrate craving and addiction when you first start within 5 to 10 days. Some takes 3 weeks, but it does happen. But in maintenance, this is your goal. If you do not want to spike your blood sugar. If you do, this spiking the blood sugar, oh, I'm going to go cheat. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have a bagel. I deserve it. You set off this uncontrollable hunger for 2 to 3 days. You have to eat again. And we're saying, I know I've experienced it, and anybody who's been out there has experienced this. So cheating is not inconsequential. That's why sugar stop's there. But I like the fact you just eat the right food. You don't have to worry about it. Okay. But here's another thing I want to share with people entering the maintenance phase. It's called the elimination diet. I do this in my medical practice. I have so many people that are intolerant to gluten, soy, dairy, nuts, and peanuts, primarily shellfish. The thing is the fact that they have reflux, they have GI upset, they have all kinds of problems. They're inflamed. They have one of these foods and they can feel their hands swell or their joints. Well, you have been avoiding these for at least a month, if not more, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. So take advantage of it and consider what I do with an elimination diet. I have people avoid these foods for at least a month. Then I begin to add back one of these foods one at a time and see if they become inflamed or develop reflux. So I make for 3 days, really have them take a bunch of gluten. I mean, a lot of bread, breadsticks, whatever, and just see how they do. If they don't react, well, then they're no intolerance. If they react, I say you're intolerant to gluten. It's a very easy way to do it. Then after that, I add soy. Same thing, a lot of soy for 3 days. Now, there's a lot of people that don't want you to ever have dairy again, and that's fine. But it is one of the inflammatory foods, and so if you want to, it'd really be good for you to know, do I react to dairy? So you add it back the same way, but one food at a time. Peanuts, nuts I'm not as worried about. It's very low. Shellfish, then you find out. But if this occurs, consider that you're intolerant to this food group and you should avoid it. But you're coming off all this. Take advantage and consider doing what I do in the elimination diet. So continue your exercise. It's not something that you continue 30 to 45 minutes of modest aerobic activity, 5 days per week. Could be just anything that gets you moving, brisk walking, biking, hiking, swimming, anything that gets you moving. You got to continue this. And aerobic activity is key to improving or maintaining that insulin sensitivity that you've worked so hard to reverse or get back under control. It's a critical part of the maintenance program. Now, let's talk about Slenderiiz. You've been on Slenderiiz, many of you, and it's it's just wonderful because it contains 10 basic homeopathic ingredients. Several of them improve insulin sensitivity from a different mechanism. So it's working, diet, exercise, and the supplementation improve insulin sensitivity from a certain mechanism. Well, Slenderiiz improves it from another. It helps, there are other that improve your appetite, others increase your metabolism. We're balancing hormones. Accelerate is great because it gives you that energy because of the high dose vitamin B12 and biotin, but it contains rhodiola and ashwagandha, 2 aromatic herbs that calm you, that give you a sense of relaxation and peace while you're really putting pressure on. Now, once you've reached your health and weight goal, I tell my patients they can go off the Slenderiiz and accelerate. It's an option. If they want to continue it, fine. It is healthy. You can take it the rest of your life. But it is something that once you reach your health and weight goal, it is an option for you. Okay? Now, I think as part of anybody's healthy lifestyle, we need to provide cellular nutrition, which I define as providing all the essential nutrients to the cell at their optimal advanced levels, those levels that have been shown to provide a health benefit in our medical literature. This should just be part of a healthy lifestyle. So why do I do that? Well, there are many micronutrients that improve insulin sensitivity: vanadium, chromium, magnesium, some minerals, selenium. But antioxidant, most antioxidant, vitamin E, vitamin C, grapeseed extract, they improve insulin sensitivity. So you want to continue this because it is so easy to tip back to the old metabolic dysfunction. So I really promote my patients consider taking PartnerCo's MOA or Optimals or both. I like them together. They provide this cellular nutrition. It should be part of a healthy lifestyle. You want to continue this the rest of your life. You want to continue exercising. You want to continue eating that healthy diet. It's just part of a healthy lifestyle. Now, many are taking Tahishi noni juice, and it's a choice as a healthy lifestyle. Now, I like adding the Optimals, and even people on lean, that's a healthy choice. So you pick your favorite juice. I'd really love it if you take the Optimals, or if you want to just take the Optimals, fine. That's what we did the clinical trials with. But basically, this should be part of a healthy lifestyle. It's something you do. See, when I first got started in medicine, I always believed in telling my patients to eat a healthy diet. I believed in whole foods and eating those good, healthy proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. But then I always believed in exercise. I wanted my patients to exercise because there are health benefits for my patients that had a healthy exercise. But now that I've studied the medical literature, I know that my patients who take high quality nutritional supplements, PartnerCo, have a health benefit over those that don't. And it should be part of a healthy lifestyle. Now, many people are adding Renew or take Renew because it increases human growth hormone. Well, one of the things human growth hormone does is it helps us get back to our lean body weight. So people get on Renew and they find, gee, they lose even more, or they maintain muscle mass, bone mass. They sleep better. I mean, it's got a lot of benefits. And remember, human growth hormone is really our anti-aging hormone. And that's what we look at. We want to have that. So Renew is something you really consider, could consider adding. Now, I put all this in my book, Healthy for Life. You can go to Amazon and just type in Dr. Strand's ebook, Healthy for Life. Okay, or Dr. Strand ebook, Healthy for Life. And it will come down, you load it on your Kindle. I go over all this stuff. If someone wants to really find more about this and everything, that's sure something they can do. So I'm going to end with that. I don't know if I've gone too long or what, but I'm going to stop sharing, turning it back to you. And